How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to an episode here on Let's Build Twitter. As always, I'm Ethan, our unknown coder, your favorite underqualified senior software engineer. As always, if you guys don't want access to the private repository for this project, there's a link in the description down below that'll walk you through exactly how to gain access to that. Now, that being said, y'all, let's go and hop into what we're working on today. Last episode, we went through and set up the ability to process views through a WebSocket and process them with multi-threading on the back end. Now this episode, let's go ahead and start sending those views over to the back end and start processing them. Hopefully everything works out. It was working pretty well on my slower computer that I was developing this on, so hopefully it works very well on my better computer. So with that being said, y'all, let's go and hop into the front end and get to work here, and hopefully everything works out in the end. Start out today, we need to go ahead and start out inside of our global interfaces. So we need to come down to where our post is, because we need to go ahead and make a new interface for those post views and then throw them into our post. So I'm going to go ahead and come above our post here, and let's go ahead and say interface, and we'll go ahead and call this post view and make our interface here. We're going to have our location of type string. We're going to have our user of type user or null, and then finally we're going to go ahead and have a post of post. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and come in here. And here, I don't know that we need to actually have the post itself. I think this should actually be like post ID or something, but it is what it is. Maybe I forgot to change it or something. I'm not sure. We'll just keep it as is and see what happens. Now, instead of views being a user is going to be a post view array. So let's go ahead and update that. And now that is our global interface is updated. Now we need to go ahead and make some changes inside of our post slice to be able to take in the view client or the WebSocket client to be able to actually process the views or send the views. Let's go and hop into our post slice v2. Sorry about that, y'all. Sorry for the quick cut there. I got pulled into helping out with something really quickly. So like I mentioned, back inside of our post slice state, we need to go ahead and add in the client. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and put it down here. It doesn't really matter where it goes. Oops, daisies, let's come back up here. Doesn't really matter where it goes. So under here, let's go ahead and say view client, and this is going to go ahead and be a client, and this needs to come from our stomp.js or null, and this is not going to be serializable, so we're going to have to go through and basically ignore this, but we'll deal with that in a second. And we'll also go ahead and come back here behind our poll. This again doesn't really matter where it goes. We go ahead and say client or, so we can go ahead and update that post state. And then let's go ahead and come into our initial state, come down below reply to, and go ahead and say view client and null. So now we can go ahead and start viewing things here inside of our inside of our post slice state. Now let's go ahead and come down to our reducers here. So we're going to go down to about line 322. There we go. We're going to go ahead and come below our reset post state. We're going to go ahead and say view post. Probably shouldn't be below the reset post state because it's like one of the main actions, but it is what it is. State and action, and then this is going to go ahead and be a payload action like so. Inside the payload action, we're going to go ahead and take in an object of type post, and we're also going to go and have a user question mark, and this is going to be a user. So there we go. Let's go ahead and open this up. We're going to say if we have our state dot view client, because it could be null. So if we have that set up, we're going to go and say state dot view client like so, and we're going to say dot send, and here we're going to go and have a slash and then app slash view, and then back here we're going to say object, and we're going to have a JSON dot stringify. We're going to go ahead and send in the user ID is going to be action dot payload question mark dot user dot question mark dot user ID, and then or we'll go ahead and send -1. So if we don't have a user, we're just going to go ahead and send -1. We're going to have our post ID is going to be equal to action.payload.post.post ID. Obviously, we need to go ahead and include this. And then the location is going to be set automatically, so that's fine. So that's literally our view post. We're not going to update the state or anything. We probably should be updating the state here now that I think about it, but it is what it is. We're going to be dealing with that in a different location, so that's fine. So now let's go ahead and export this bad boy. Let's also make sure we don't have any issues. Nope, looks good. Actually, we do. We need to go and import post. That's kind of crazy that we don't have post anywhere. And then here, let's see this. I forgot to go ahead and add a curly brace. Let's go ahead and fix that curly brace. We might also still be missing a parenthesis. There we go. looks a lot better. So now we're going to go ahead and whenever we want to process a view, it's going to go ahead and call that view client and send that message basically to our queue, and then the backend will process it. So now it's going to go ahead and come down here. Let's go ahead and add this here. So we're going to go ahead and say view post like so and save that. Looks good. So now we need to go ahead and go to our store.ts to go ahead and ignore the view client inside of here. So let's go and hop into store. Inside our store, let's go ahead and come to our ignored actions, and let's go ahead and ignore a couple actions here. So we'll come below this profile. We're going to go ahead and say post v2, v2 slash, and this is going to be a view post. We're also going to go ahead and ignore feed slash update post. Okay. Now let's go ahead and come down here as well. We're going to go ahead and ignore a path. We're going to go ahead and say post and v2 dot and then view client, and that should go ahead and help us out. That I think we still have one floating around that Redux is mad at us about, but we're going to go ahead and ignore that for now. This is fine. Looks good. Now we need to go ahead and update our use WebSocket to actually send or update the view client inside of our state. So let's go ahead and hop into there. Inside of a use WebSocket, we're going to go down to about line 38. So let's come down here on connect. So now if we have connected, we're going to go ahead and come below our on message received. Let's come over here. We're going to go ahead and say dispatch. Dispatch like so. We might need to bring in dispatch here. We're going to go ahead and dispatch update post state. Update post state. Go ahead and bring that in, and we'll go ahead and pass in our object. Here, the property, like a type, property is going to go ahead and be view client like so. And then we're also going to go and have our value is going to be our stomp client. So now we're going to go ahead and send that over. And this just was kind of the easiest way I could get this to work. There's other ways we could have done this, but having access to that view client inside of our post slice is going to be the easiest way for us to do this. So now we need to go ahead and fetch the user's IP address inside the app.tsx to be able to actually start sending views and stuff. And the reason why we're going to go and have the IP address on the front end is that way we can go ahead and try to check against our local storage basically to see, hey, does this view on the front end have a view from the user? If so, let's not go ahead and send a request or a message to the back end. So it's going to go ahead and try to prevent us from making duplicate requests. Now it's still sending duplicate requests sometimes, and I haven't quite tracked down why. I've tried a whole bunch of different things, but this is kind of like good enough to start. You guys can iterate on if you actually absolutely want to. But with that being said, let's go and hop into app.tsx. Now inside of app.tsx, let's come down here. We're going to go ahead and set up a const location inside of use local storage. So we're going to go and say const, and this is going to go ahead and be location, that location, and go ahead and remove location is equal to use local storage. We're going to go ahead and pass in location, and it's going to start out as an empty string. Now let's go ahead and set up a fetch local storage or fetch location. So const fetch location is going to be equal to an async, async and arrow function. So let's go ahead and set that up. And then here we're going to go and say try and catch. We're going to catch E maybe. And then here it's going to go ahead and console.log E. I'm not going to do anything if it doesn't work. And then here we're going to go ahead and try. We're going to say let res equal to await axios dot get. Okay, and this is going to go ahead and be to http :/localhost 8000 /auth /location. Now what we could have done here instead is, I think there's services out there or APIs out there that let you basically make a request and then get your IP address, and then we could have stored it that way and then just sent the IP address inside of the view request as well, which if I find out that this doesn't really work, we might go through and do that as well. But for now, we're going to go ahead and keep this as is. We're going to go ahead and get that. And we're going to say set location to res.data. And now we're going to have the location on hand for us so we can check against what's already on the post. Now we're going to go ahead and make a new use effect that just calls once. So use effect, like so, and make our arrow function. And then this is just going to go ahead and have an empty thing here. Open this up, and then we're just going to go ahead and say fetch location. So that should go ahead and store the location for us. And if we save that, that should be good. So now let's just quickly hop into the front end and make sure the IP is getting saved. So let's go ahead and do that. And we broke something here. So user ID does not exist on type post view. So yeah, so I was wondering if this was going to be an issue. Let's see. So user, well, actually, no, this is a completely different issue. So I guess we're not going to be able to test to see if this is working because we need to go through and actually fix all this before we actually load the page. But maybe we can still see this go through network tab, refresh. So it's still going to break. If we go ahead and close out of this, let's see here. So I don't see I see verify come through, and we probably could have put it on there. So there's our location. We go into our application, go into our local storage here, and we can go ahead and we should be able to see a location. Yeah, and it's coming back as 0s and 1, and I think that's because we are on a local host here. And like I said, if we want to go ahead and change this to like call a service that's external, that actually gets our IP address and stuff like that, I have to be careful. We could try to do that, but for the time being, this is working. But with that being said, let's go ahead and hop back in the code and fix up all those issues that we were seeing there. So next up, we need to go ahead and go into our use post actions and update the ability to be able to view from there. So let's go and hop into use post actions. Now inside of view post actions, we're going to go ahead and let's see here. So I'm going to go ahead and basically remove the stuff that's inside of this view because I don't think we need this, or we're going to go ahead and change it. So let's go ahead and delete this create single view here, and inside we're going to say let and updated post equal to json.parse, and we're going to go ahead and have json.stringify, and inside we're going to go and have our post, and this might have been already here, I don't remember, but I'm just going to go ahead and start fresh. So we're going to say if we have our location, we need to grab our location. I'll grab that in a second, and not post.views.sum. We're going to say view like so. We're going to have an arrow function view.location equal to location. So we're going to go ahead and check to see if we have a view already. Let's go ahead and grab that location really quick. Come back to the top here, come below our logged in really quick. Actually, we can come below dispatch, I guess. We're going to say const and location, set location and remove location. Actually, we don't need to, we can just say const. And I don't know why I did it this way, but it is what it is. Location equal to and local storage dot and then get item. I'll go ahead and pass in location. I should have just been able to use that use local storage hook, but it is what it is. Now we should have our location. Hopefully this should not be mad at us anymore. Perfect. So now we're going to check to see if we have our location and go ahead and check to see if the view doesn't exist on that specific post. If that's the case, we're going to say set views equal to ... and post .views like so. And then let's also go ahead and do one of these. And I think I screwed this up. Oh no, it's fine. We're going to go ahead and do this. Go like that. It's just kind of ugly. I'm going to set the location. We're going to say user is logged in. And then we're going to go ahead and say that the post is set up like that. So there's that. And then we're going to go ahead and say updated post is equal to an object. And here we're going to say ... updated post, comma, and then we're going to set it in those views. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and say dispatch. And we're going to go ahead and update post. And we're going to go ahead and pass in the updated post like so. We're also going to go ahead and dispatch. We're going to dispatch view post. Maybe. Excuse me, view post. And here we're going to have the post. And then the user will be logged in. We're going to go ahead and pass those in and save that. So now whenever we go through and view a single post with our use post actions here, it's going to go ahead and dispatch that view post, which is going to go ahead and call the view client and do all that stuff. And it should also be going ahead and updating the post on the front end for us. Now, I think there might still be some mismatch issues or something like that with what we're getting back and what we're sending or something, but we'll see how it's going to be acting because the views are coming in and they are working properly for the most part from what I saw, but I saw that it was sending some duplicates over, and then obviously if there's a duplicate on the back end, you're gonna get mad at us because of PostgreSQL and all that stuff. So we'll have to see here. So now we need to actually go ahead and update the post component itself to be able to make that view. Let's go and hop into the post component. So now inside post, let's come in here. And we have some issues here, obviously with batch view and stuff like that. We're going to get rid of that and we're going to make some changes. So let's come in here. We're going to go ahead and we already have our dispatch. We need to go ahead and bring in our location. Let's go ahead and say const location is equal to, and this is going to be local, storage dot, and then get item. We're going to have our location. Again, I don't know why I'm not using my hook here. It is what it is. I'm not going to change it because I'll probably break everything. I'm also going to go ahead and say const and viewed and set viewed like so is equal to use state. Go and bring in use state. This is going to be of type and Boolean like so. And this is going to go ahead and be an arrow function. And here we're going to go ahead and say return post.views.sum. And this is going to go ahead and say view. Let's go do our arrow function. And then here we're going to go ahead and say view.location is equal to location. There we go. Let's also go ahead and bring in that create single view. We're going to come up here, or actually where we're going to come, I guess we'll just come down below here, const, and we're going to say create single view, like a type, going to be equal to, and this is going to be use post actions. Go ahead and bring that in. Now we're going to go ahead and get rid of this batch view here. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. And it's obviously going to break down here somewhere. Let's see where our batch view is. I don't even know where that was coming in at. Oh, right here. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and just clear this out as well. That's fine. And let's just do one of these for the time being so it's not mad at us. There we go. So now instead of batching the views, we're going to go ahead and send single views over. Let's go ahead and say const handle and view post is going to be equal to, we need to pass in entries of type any, and let's do one of these. So now we're going to say entries dot for each. I don't know if I spelled entries right there, but we'll figure out in a second. Entries colon any, and this should probably be entry. Okay, go ahead and do our arrow function, and then inside our arrow function we're going to say if entry dot is intersecting, and then and not viewed like so. And we're going to go ahead and open this up. So if we are seeing or viewing the post and we haven't viewed it already, we're going to go ahead and say create single view. We're going to go ahead and pass in the post. We're going to set viewed to true like that. Looks good. And then now we're going to go ahead and do our use effect. So inside the use effect, we're going to say let observer, and I'm going to go ahead, and this is different enough that I'm going to remove all of this here, and we're going to start over. So we're going to say let observer and be like that. We're going to say if our viewed is true, we're going to go and say observer is equal to null. We don't want it to be observing anymore and sending stuff. We're going to say if our post ref and our post ref dot current, and we have not viewed the post. Then we're going to go ahead and say observer is equal to a new enter and section observer like so. And then inside we're going to go ahead and have our handle view post. Let's go ahead and set up the config. So here we're going to say root is null, maybe, and then we're going to go ahead and say threshold is 100%. We want to be able to see the whole post before we send this notification out. So let's do that. And then we're going to go ahead and say const target is equal to our post ref dot current. And then finally, we'll go ahead and say observer dot observe, and then go ahead and pass in that target. Finally, we want to go ahead and watch for this to change. So we're going to say viewed. So basically what's going to happen here is the first time it runs, viewed should be false if we haven't viewed it yet. So then we'll set up the observer should see it, and then after that it should set this to viewed to true. So then if viewed is true, it should set observer to null, and then it should stop observing. So that looks good. Now that should fix that up in theory. If it's actually going to work, I have no clue. We'll have to see. So I guess what we could probably go ahead and do is hop into the front end really quick, give it a refresh, and just make sure things are working, because all we have to do after this is just updating the feed to remove some unneeded code and do a couple other things, which I think feed's probably broken still because it still has some send batch views and stuff like that that we deleted. So I guess let's just go ahead and work on the individual post real quick, and then we'll go from there. So let's go ahead to our individual post component. Inside our individual post, we still have our create view, so that's perfectly fine, but now we're going to need our location. So let's go ahead and say const and location is equal to and local storage get item. We're going to go ahead and pass in location. So now we have that. We also want to go ahead and come above here. We're going to say const and viewed and set viewed equal to use state. We're going to do the same thing again. This is going to be Boolean. And let's go ahead and set up our arrow function. And here we're going to go ahead and return post.views.sum, pass in view. We're going to do our arrow function. And here we're going to say view.location is equal to location. And I think the issue here might be maybe one's come back as a string, one's coming back as a number or something. I don't really know. But maybe we should have used double equals there, but it is what it is. And we're going to come down to a use effect here. So we're going to come to, it says line 44. So I'm assuming that we're going to go ahead and just wrap this create single view here. So right here, we're going to say if and not, if not viewed, like so. So if it hasn't been viewed, then we'll go ahead and create the single view. So let's go ahead and move this up. So paste that in and save that. That looks good. And now the final thing we need to do in this episode, which I know it's going to be a little bit of a shorter one, but it is what it is. The final thing that we want to go ahead and do is update the feed to go ahead and remove the logic for viewing posts from the feed since we put it on the post itself. So let's hop into the feed component. Here inside feed, basically what we need to go ahead and do is we need to get rid of this const init before unload. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, we also need to go ahead and get rid of the dispatch for sending batch viewed. I don't know where this one is, so let's see here. We have our load feed page, so we have the dispatch send batch views. So let's go ahead and get rid of this as well. Okay, I don't know why that made that mad, but it's fine. And then I think we can also go ahead and get rid of this use effect here. Let's go ahead and get rid of this as well. And delete that and save. Make sure there's no other errors in here. So I think everything is loading fine. We can get rid of this unneeded use or import here. And that also basically decommissions our entire old post slice. So we can go ahead and get rid of that as well. The only thing here is that post state is coming from state.post instead of state.post v2. So that might be something that we want to look into and fix as well, because I think we want to completely get rid of that v1, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. With that being said, y'all, let's go ahead and hop in the front end and see if this wants to work. And then we'll go ahead and wrap up the episode there. And the next episode, we'll start working on a new page, which is going to be like the explore page. With that being said, like I said, let's hop into the browser. Okay, so there is an issue, it seems like. Let's make sure. Okay, so it says argument of type post user, blah, 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 is not assignable to type post action, object literal, specify known properties, post does not exist on post action body. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out use post actions and see what's going on with this. This should probably be updated post maybe. So let's see if view post came from the right place maybe. That might be the issue. Let's add it right here actually. So let's add view post into that. Let's go ahead and delete this, save it, and now see if it's an issue. I didn't see that error before. Create single view post. Okay, it looks good. So that should go ahead and fix that. Let's go ahead and just give it a save all again to be safe. Let's hop into the browser again. There we go. It looks a lot better. And let's refresh. So here's the issue that I was having with this. There it goes. Now it's starting. So for some reason, what I still need to figure out and haven't quite figured out is sometimes whenever you very first refresh the page, it's not recognizing it like the observer or whatever. But now you can see as we're scrolling, now they're starting to come in. And I want to see if we're sending duplicates here. So we're going to go into our network or a console. So if we scroll up, yes, you can see that post 1 still sent for some reason, and we still have, for some reason, this is ignoring it, but it is what it is. So for some reason, it still sends duplicates sometimes, even though it shouldn't be. Because if we go into Redux really quick, go into our view post and go into our post, and maybe it's because we're looking at the wrong thing. I'm not sure. We go into post v2. Let's see here, or maybe it's in our feed. Go into our post, and we should have our post, and then we should have views. So you should see that we do have a location here, and the location should match. So it shouldn't be sending this. So I'm not 100% sure. I might need to debug that, but views are coming in, so it's fine. The only issue is that on the back end, obviously, we're going to be getting issues because it already exists or whatever. So duplicate key, but it's fine. I could tweak this a little bit more, but I'm not that worried about it because like I said, it should be a little bit more performant using multiple threads now, and they're coming in pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it at that. And that's going to be the end of the episode. Like I said, this one is a little bit of a shorter one, but that's just kind of how everything laid out this episode. Next episode, we'll go through and start working on the ability to click on this explore page and actually see stuff in here. If you guys did enjoy, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Everything helps out here with the YouTube algorithm. If you do want to see where we start from absolute scratch to get to point right now, it's going to be placed in card like right over here. With that being said, y'all, hope you have a great day. This has been Ethan, or Unknown Coder, and I'll see you all in the next video.